like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Are we good now, Chad? One more time. I'd like to call a meeting, it's always Nick's fault. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Corporal, please call roll.
Mr. Kizak?
Here.
Ms. Payne?
Here.
Ms. Hannah?
Here.
Ms. Kane?
Here.
We also have Ms. Julie Cools, Township Manager in attendance, Assistant Manager Mr. Viola, Township Solicitor Mr. Esposito, and Township Engineer Mr. Kessler in attendance.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. A couple of announcements and special items. First, the next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, March 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. And next on the agenda, we have Parkland Fire Company recognition on their 100th anniversary. We are thrilled to be able to honor Parkland Fire Company this evening, one of our 4 volunteer fire companies that serve Middletown Township. Parkland is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2022. And so I have a proclamation that I am going to read. Whereas Parkland Fire Company was organized in September 1921, formally chartered in 1922, and reorganized in 1937 after a house fire on Sunflower Avenue. And whereas members of the Parkland Fire Company built their firehouse situated on Avenue D in 1938, digging the foundation and laying brick by hand. Whereas the First National Bank and Trust Company of Newtown granted a loan of $5,100 for construction of their firehouse without question and without signatures upon seeing dedicated volunteers building the firehouse, citing the determination and cooperation of the volunteers as sufficient collateral for the loan. And whereas Parkland Fire Company was the first fire department in the United States to use the Hearst Jaws of Life, an essential tool used in fire service in 1972 with a spreading force of 10,000 pounds and a cost of $6,000. And whereas the volunteer members of Parkland Fire Company continue the proud tradition of fire emergency service to the citizens of Middletown Township, now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Middletown, Bucks County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, proclaim our heartfelt gratitude to the volunteer members past and present of Parkland Fire Company and acknowledge their lasting contributions to the quality of life of our residents. Be it further proclaimed that we, the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Middletown, County of Bucks, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, do hereby offer our sincere congratulations to Parkland Fire Company on the occasion of its 100th anniversary. Middletown Township Board of Supervisors proclaim this day, the 5th of March, 2022. I'd like to also, while we are talking about the Parkland Fire Company, recognize Chief T.J. Stressman and President Jim McFadden. This past weekend, Parkland Fire Company held its annual banquet at the Uptown Hall in Parkland. Our Township Manager, Chief of Police, Interim Director of Fire Emergency Management were all in attendance to honor Parkland. And I'd like to announce the names of the individuals who were recognized at that banquet. First, for years of service, for 20 years active service, Kristen Ottinger. For 15 years active service, Jared Watson. For 5 years active service, Harry Bickling. There were also a couple of retirement recognitions. Michael Fox retired after 10 years as a Chief Line Officer, and Edward Hill retired after 12 years as Captain of Fire Police. Also, awards given out. The Chief's Award was given to Jim McFadden. The President's Award was given to Anthony Cole. And Firefighter of the Year Award was given to Zachary Herstein. The Board of Supervisors would also like to recognize former Parkland Chief Lyle Winters, who also served as Middletown's first fire marshal. Lyle traveled from Florida to celebrate with the fire company that he had joined in 1949. So once again, on behalf of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, we want to thank and offer our sincere congratulations to the Parkland Fire Company on this important anniversary. And if everybody wouldn't mind just standing and giving these guys a round of applause. Next on the agenda, we have resolution number 22-09, Developmental Disabilities Month. The month of March is National Developmental Disabilities Month. During this month, we are reminded of the value and contributions people with developmental disabilities make to our community. National Developmental Disabilities Month also raises awareness about the barriers and obstacles countless people face every single day. Our community is made stronger when all people, including those with developmental disabilities, are included, accommodated, and celebrated. I'm pleased to share that the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors is recognizing the month of March as National Developmental Disabilities Month for the first time. For those who may not know, when the Board of Supervisors established the Human Relations Commission in 2020, it was merged with the then existing Disabled Persons Advisory Board. Under their combined scope, the Human Relations Commission promotes the value and diversity of several underrepresented groups in our community, including those with mental and physical disabilities. We want to personally thank James Henderson. James is a member of the Human Relations Commission for bringing this to our attention and encouraging us to give it this month the recognition it deserves. So thank you very much, James. So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas National Developmental Disabilities Month is observed in March each year, and whereas intellectual and developmental disabilities are disorders that are usually present at birth and that negatively affect the trajectory of the individual's physical, intellectual, and/or emotional development, and whereas people with a developmental disability are of all racial, ethnic, educational, social, and economic backgrounds, and are all valued members of society who find fulfillment living everyday lives, and whereas the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors value what is important to people with disabilities and their families who are striving everyday lives no different than that of all other citizens, and whereas in 2020 the Board of Supervisors established the Human Relations Commission to address discrimination in the township, merging it with the previously established Disabled Persons Advisory Board, and whereas the Human Relations Commission is dedicated to promoting the value of diversity and addressing discrimination based on age, race, color, gender identity, religion, creed, culture, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, ancestry, national origin, and mental or physical disability. Now therefore be it resolved that the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors encourages residents to support those with a developmental disability and expresses support for inclusion and acceptance of persons within our community. Further be it resolved that Middletown Township Board of Supervisors proclaims March as National Developmental Disabilities Month in Middletown Township, resolved this 7th day of March 2022 by the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. So once again, thank you to our Human Relations Commission and in particular to James Henderson for spearheading this initiative. Next on the agenda, we have public comment on non-agenda items. This is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment? Yes, sir. Please just state your name and address.
Good evening, Board, Mr. Chair. My name's Tom Tosti, Oxford Drive. If I could approach just to give you guys.
Of course.
So what I gave you, I'll go over the document as we go, but what I'm here for is I'm here to ask the board to pass a resolution to stop the sale of the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. The board at the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority is looking to sell the property to Aqua, and when you sell these authorities, usually what happens is the rates go up and the service goes down in the township. As you can see by the document on the front page is the resolution that we're asking you to pass if you choose to do so. And what we're asking you to do is to send this to the Board of Commissioners because they would end up having the last say in this. When you privatize, on the second page, there's some facts and figures. Well, it's actually the third page. So on it, it says, privatizing local water and sewer system usually does far more harm than good for communities. And here's why. Privatization, when corporations buy or operate public water utilities, is often suggested as a solution to municipal budget problems and aging water systems. Unfortunately, this more often backfires, leaving communities with higher rates, worse service, job losses, and more. That's my concern, is the job losses and the higher rates. Right now, Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, my average bill is over $100 a month. If you go to the lower Bucks Joint Water Authority, it's about $100 a quarter. When we sold it to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority back in 2004, 2005, whatever the date was that we sold our authority there, our rates went up then. Our rates are going to increase in the township if this happens. The Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority on here, you'll see a list as I go through here. They work on, there's 30 different boroughs and townships that they supply water to and sewer to. I'm going to be stopping at all of them. You're my second stop. I actually have two more if I can make them tonight. But I'm looking out to make sure that our community doesn't get hit with higher rates. The sale that they're looking to sell this, or the price that they're looking to sell this for, will be the highest price and the biggest sale of any water authority in the whole country, and it's $1.3 billion is what they're looking at. They've hired a group. The water authority has hired the Seisler Group to do their marketing and their messaging. And what they're going to do is they're going to tell residents by us selling this, we won't have to raise your taxes. But here in Middletown and the other 30 communities, your water bill is going to go up. You might not get a tax increase, but your water bill will go up. So if you look at the second page after the one I just said, it says privatization limits public accountability, because you're not going to a public anymore, you're going to a private, and you don't have the same access to the authority and to the information that you have now. You'll have loss of public input because it'll be a private authority. You won't have that anymore, and you'll have loss of transparency. On the next page, it shows you for the typical household, the privately owned water use service will cost you 59% more than public service. And that's a fact. That's whenever they sell it to these private companies, your water bill will always go up. The next page, it'll show you the lack of competition. Aqua is the person or the group that they're looking at. And if they were to purchase the water authority, that's 30 townships and boroughs within Montgomery County, Chester County, Philadelphia, and Bucks County, that the competition will be eliminated because now it's a private company that is going to be servicing our area. The next couple pages just gives you a couple of facts and things that you can look up. Then you can go to the one page, and it has all the list of the authorities or the boroughs, townships, and municipalities that they have. So you can see Newtown, Artisan Water, Northampton, Upper Southampton. Then you have just the water that is service water. And you can see Middletown is one of the ones that service water, but Middletown is also one that services sewer. So as you can see, there's 30 different ones there. The next page I have there is the emails to the Bucks County commissioners. I mean, if residents are listening to this, residents want to hear this, I'd encourage them to email your commissioners, because that's how it gets stopped. Right now, nobody knows that they're looking to privatize the water authority. I attended their board meeting in November of last year, and I questioned them at the board meeting, at the water authority board meeting, and it was no answers, just a stone face by all 5 board members. Not one said anything about a privatization. It was after the meeting, I had the vice chair come up to me, who is no longer on the board because they reappointed somebody else in his position, and told me that we should fight this, and it is coming. This is something that is coming to our community. So there are the 3 names. I mean, you can email your board of commissioners and tell them, encourage them not to privatize the water authority. The one after that is Ben Jones. He is the chief executive officer at the authority. There's no email addresses for the 5 board members on the authority. So what I would encourage people to do is to email Ben so that he can relay it to the board members and let them know that the community is up in arms, or community does not want to see this sale. I mean, I can give you my email address if people want to participate and help me, because 30 communities that I'm going to be hitting is a lot. I think 8 this week that I'm going to be hitting. But they're going to be in Montgomery County, Chester County, and Bucks County. Philadelphia, I do not have to go to. I already wrote them a letter on my behalf on how I felt about it. But we need to have a voice. If we sit back and wait, right now it's in the infinite stages. It's at the beginning. But the way you stop this is by getting community activists, people in the community up in arms about it, and then we can stop the sale of this authority by doing this. The last page that I got is a notice that was sent to Limerick Township. And this is just an example. This was sent out in October of last year. If you go down in the middle of it, it shows you residential customers using 3,800 gallons a month would increase from $37.59 to $71.27 a month. And then commercial customers using 5,800 gallons a month would increase from $15.90 to $88 a month. This was sent out to the residents in Limerick Township because of the increase of the authority and the amount that it's going to be paid. I'm here to actually ask you to consider passing a resolution and send it to the commissioners and tell them that Middletown Township opposes this and that they should rethink this. You can read the resolution. If you would like to change it, you can. But I really think that people need to hear about us instead of just sitting back, because, like I said, there's a lot of people in our community and all the other communities that I mentioned that don't know that this is going to happen. So that's why I'm here. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And if not, I'm headed over to Unionville.
Actually, so do we know, and if you said this, I apologize, do we know why they're selling?
Money.
Just money, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the authority. I mean, the authority's ran well. It's funded. It's fully funded. The pension's fully funded.
Right.
It's really just, it's money.
Yeah, and I know when we had that water issue back, I think in the fall, there was discussion at the board meeting around potentially getting someone on the board from Middletown to have a say.
That was Lower Bucks. That was Lower Bucks. That was a
Okay,
separate
this is the other
authority.
one. Okay. Right.
No, we don't.
Well, thank you for bringing this to us.
Any other questions for Mr. Tosti? Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Certainly something that we will take under consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And hi, Ms. Payne. Take care.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
You said you were going to share your email if anybody wanted to
Yeah, my
contact you.
email is SPRT as in Tom, SF as in Frank, N511@comcast.net. It'll look like sports fan with no vowels. I'm a little bit of a nut when it comes to sports.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, Mr. Warren.
Just two quick things. One, certainly not an agenda item, but a point of personal privilege. I would like to offer a very sincere and heartfelt birthday, although it's a week late, to, some would say, the most productive supervisor on the board, because she says the least. But happy birthday to you, and many, many more to come. And the second point was just to follow up on Mr. Tosti's concern. Generally, if Tosti's for it, Warren's against it. But that's not what I'm here for. I
was gonna say, yeah.
No, I'm not. What I did, my question, however, is, and perhaps for you, what is the alternative? Can a government, and I'm asking this sincerely, and I don't need an answer right now, but can a governmental board tell what is apparently a private organization you cannot sell your organization? Or is there something in the regulations of the Water Authority that says veto power comes with the government? And that was my question. For another day, perhaps.
It's an authority. It's the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, which
Right.
is its own separate governmental entity.
Pardon me?
They are their own separate governmental entity as an authority.
Right.
And so no municipality would have the ability to tell them that they can or cannot.
Well, that's what I
do.
thought.
And as Mr. Tosti mentioned, the Bucks County Board of Commissioners will have to sign off on it, which is why.
Well, they can't tell them they can't sell either, can they?
Well, apparently there must be some reason, probably because of the way that the authority was initially created.
That was my question, because I didn't think the government.
Yeah, I don't know how that's set up, but what Mr. Tosti is asking is for all the municipalities to write a resolution to try and force the commissioners to say something to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. I don't know what their authority is over them.
Right.
I'll look into that for
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Warren. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move on to consent agenda items. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of the March 7, 2020 bills list in the amount of $766,739.10. Item B, consideration of approving the February 22, 2022 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. And item C, consideration of approving resolution number 22-08, authorizing submission to DCED Local Share Grant Program. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve all consent agenda items as written.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Hanna. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda items pass 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing advertisement of bid for the 2022 road program. Yes, Mr. Kessler.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. Tonight, we're before you as we finalize the documents for the 2022 road program for the township. And what we have for this year's program, to give a brief outline, are some visuals just as some of the areas we're looking at for milling and overlay. It includes the Idlewood neighborhood, pretty much all the roadways in there. And in the pictures, you'll see the roads highlighted in red are the areas that we're looking to repave. Those yellow lines are the township boundary, just for reference. Other roads outside of Idlewood neighborhood are Doublewoods Road, South Hazel Avenue, Hill Street, Bristol Avenue, Walnut Street, Dogwood Street, Shaw Avenue, Knoll Avenue, and Forget-Me-Not Lane behind the township building here. As we usually do with the road program, we include a few alternates, and there's two areas that would also involve proposed paving, but also some drainage improvements for stormwater and pipes and inlets. Those include Hillside Avenue and the main parking lot at Twin Oaks Park. Some additional alternates we're looking to include would be an inlet for stormwater improvements on Rugby Drive, as well as at the Senior Citizen Center, the old basketball, or the old tennis courts, I should say, working with Parks and Rec. We're looking to reconstruct that into 2 new pickleball courts and a half-court basketball court. So what we're requesting this evening is to authorize the bidding of the contract for public bid, which would take place a bit later this month, once all the documents are finalized. And the way that it's set up with base bid and alternates is that the base bid is the mill and overlay that we definitely want to move forward with. Of course, the alternates, as the pricing comes in, we'd be able to decide which, or hopefully all of those that we can include and remain within the budget for this year's program. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
How do we decide on which areas are going to get paved during a particular year?
That's a good question. There's a few factors that come into play. Working with Eric Gartenmeyer in the Public Works Department, as well as other staff, we look at historically which ones have been paved, so basically which ones need attention that haven't been paved the longest. There's other factors that come up if we have rough winters and roads just deteriorate a little quicker. And we also try to attack some roadways throughout the township, so we hopefully improve roads around the township and not just wind up in one corner.
I have a question. So this is obviously in the budget already. So what if if it comes and nothing meets the budget? Do we just pick the top ones that we deemed are most necessary and leave the other ones for next year, or how does that work exactly?
We could. The base bid is set up for all these roadways. It's very expected that would be within the budget. In the 2022 budget, there is $1 million for the road improvement program. We expect these would likely be well within that, and then we can add these alternates with some other budget items that identify these alternates as well, and hopefully be within all those elements. But if bids come in higher than budget, then we always have the option to rebid or reject bids to make sure that we have a price that we want to move forward with.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to, if it was overpriced, we wouldn't lose all of it. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
thank you.
I have a question. When would they begin the project?
Typically, our road programs begin in like midsummer. The bidding would go out later this month, April, and then the review of the bids we look to award most likely probably in early May, and then June, July is usually when the road paving would get underway.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kessler? And if not, I can accept a motion.
I make a motion to authorize the advertisement to solicit bids for the Township 2022 road program.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing the purchase of Microsoft Office 365. Yes, Chad.
Good evening. How are you all doing? During the beginning of the pandemic, if we had Office 365, our lives would be much easier here in the township. The collaboration that this will enable all employees is well needed. Also, the security aspect of sharing documents is quite needed, something that the township really needs. Going with the government plan complies with the CJIS security policy. Shame that government plans are more expensive than a traditional business. I mean, this ensures that all of our data and all of our information stays within the United States. It's not outside, and it's in a secure location. So Premier Technology gave us a quote for $40,500. It was budgeted for $50,000 this year, and we're going to be looking at a reoccurring charge of $36,000 each year for the subscription. And once we lock this in with this pricing, if Microsoft raises their price, we will still be at the $36,000 unless I need to buy additional licenses for anything. This will leave us with about 5 spare licenses of what I am presenting here tonight.
How long is that locked in for, that price? Indefinitely?
Yeah, yes. Just any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Mead?
No?
And if not, I can accept the motion.
I move to approve the purchase of Microsoft Office 365 through Premier Technology in the amount not to exceed $40,500.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Keene. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Mead.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of accepting the resignation of Jacqueline Ratner from the Planning Commission. Is there a motion to accept Ms. Ratner's resignation?
make a motion to accept Ms. Ratner's resignation.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. We'd like to thank Ms. Ratner for her service to the community. Ms. Ratner is resigning because she is moving out of our township. Next on the agenda, Middletown Police Department Co-Responder Program. We have a presentation from Chief Joe Barbarella.
Good evening, Mr. Kizak, fellow board members. I've been asked to speak about our police department's participation in the county's co-responder program. The co-responder program for Bucks County began in Bensalem PD in December of 2020. I thought we skipped something on the agenda. I just went, okay. Bensalem co-responders Walter Bynum and Rachel Augusto began as the first two in Bucks County. After close to a year of seeing the success of the program in Bensalem, Falls PD Chief Nelson Whitney and I were asked if we were interested in participating together to expand the current co-responder program into Falls and Middletown. On December 20th, 2021, co-responders Gary Gadzinski began working in Falls and Jessica Manzo began working in our police department in Middletown. In just 3 short months, Jess has already handled dozens of referrals and assisted our PD with several cases requiring social service follow-up. This allows officers to spend more time proactively addressing patrol and other public safety challenges and issues in our township. Jess has so far handled referrals and cases dealing with homelessness, mental health, addiction, elder care, and even some school issues. Jess has local roots, having graduated from the Chamonix High School, worked as a mental health crisis team responder for Lenape Valley, and she is a local resident of Lower Bucks County. Jess has her bachelor's and master's degrees in social work and is a licensed social worker. I want to make clear that Jess is not here to take the place of a police officer. She would be the first to tell you that. Rather, she is here to supplement our department and provide a vital, critical, and much-needed service to our township. This is also a no-cost service to our township as her position is funded through a county grant. We are grateful to have Jess as an MTPD team member. We look forward to her contributing to the overall well-being of our township and her role as a co-responder. For those of you who haven't met Jess yet, she's here tonight seated in the public hall. There she goes back there. Before I close, I just want to thank several people for making this co-responder program happen for us. First, I would like to thank our county commissioners, and especially Commissioner Diane Marseglia, for selecting Middletown Township for this program. I would like to thank County Social Services Director Rachel Neff for handling the hiring process and making us in the PD part of the interview process. Rachel does a great job. Our county is very fortunate, blessed to have her. I'd like to thank Falls PD Chief Nelson Whitney for partnering with us in the co-responder program, and also Bensalem PD for giving us insight into how the program was working for them while we were deciding whether it was right for us. From our own department, Sergeant Bob Weber, who was a strong advocate of the co-responder program from the start, and who sat on the interview panel with me and helped us to select Jess as our co-responder. And finally, to the Board of Supervisors for being supportive of this program, specifically to you, Mr. Kizak, who advocated for the program right away from the start, about 1.5 years ago when Bensalem had just begun it. And now we are finally here with the co-responder program in Middletown Township. So I appreciate your encouragement and support to want to bring this valuable program to Middletown Township. Our rank and file in our police department are strongly behind the co-responder program, and I believe it will be a long-term success for our township. That being said, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I certainly want to thank you, Chief, for being willing to give this a shot, and certainly pleased to hear that it's been such a success. Jess, I want to welcome you to our community, and thank you for being here, and thank you for all the great work you're doing. We're really, really glad to have you. I also want to thank the fellow board members for getting behind this, Township Manager Julie Cools, and the county commissioners, because it was a bit of a, I guess, a bit of a risk or a bit of a gamble to give this a shot to see if it would be effective, and so we're glad that it is, and so thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any questions for the Chief?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to welcome Jess also and say that I'm really excited that this program's working. I think it's fantastic. I know, there is definitely, you talked about homelessness and issues with mental illness, and we know that that's definitely a problem, and I think it's so fantastic that Jess is working with the police department, and I'm glad that it's working out. So thank you for taking it on.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal.
I'd like to reiterate what they said. And additionally, are we looking at ways that we can enhance our training with police officers with all the expertise that Jess brings us and the lessons learned from being in the field and the situations that she comes across?
Well, one of the benefits of having her here, Ms. Kane, is, we do a lot of training in the police department to begin with, but one of the benefits of having her in-house is she is a immediate referral service for us, and she's an outstanding resource, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to social service issues. She specialized in mental health crisis response, but her knowledge of all social service issues is comprehensive, and she's already helped several of our officers in educating them about the different processes and procedures and navigating the complicated field of social services. So she's a resource, and we do a lot of training ourselves. I will say this. I want to advocate for my department for a second. Before Jess came here, we were a really good department in handling social service type issues. I mean, our officers always made it a point to spend a lot of time with complainants and victims and anyone who called us if they needed something in a social service sense. Our officers would always spend several hours trying to get them the help and the resources that they needed. The resource of having Jess here kind of helps free those officers up to then be able to concentrate more on police work and have to spend less time following up on social service calls, although they always did that. We're one of the better departments that I've seen at handling that ourselves. Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say how excited I am to have the program here in Middletown. Obviously, as I work at the county, I was able to kind of like behind the scenes see how this all has panned out and worked out. And Bensalem obviously was the first township to start the program, but see how successful it's been. So I was really excited to hear that you were presenting tonight and how it's been going in Middletown. And I want to welcome Jess to the township as well. But I think this is really a great resource to have, and if it frees up officers from having to deal with certain things that Jess can handle, so they can do police work. And I do want to also comment to the chief's point that we do have one of the best police forces in the county, and that you guys always participated in the county's training programs for crisis management and everything like that. So this is just like, you know, icing on the cake, really, to have Jess here. So I'm super excited, and I'm so glad it's working out well. So thank you for presenting on it.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. We're excited to have her as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kizak.
All right, I'm out of order. I was just so excited to hear from the Chief that I missed consideration of appointments to boards and commissions, which was item 8. So first, we will consider appointments to vacancies on the Planning Commission. Are there any nominations for appointments to the Planning Commission? And I believe we have one vacancy in light of Ms. Ratner's resignation.
I would like to make a nomination for Patrick Mallon. He is a 35-year resident, Air Force veteran, longtime volunteer in youth sports, as well as Folds of Honor and Wounded Warriors Foundation. Most importantly, he served up here for 6 years as a prior supervisor. That gives him the knowledge of our ordinances, our zoning, and he clearly understands what is needed from that commission. I think he will be a great asset to our Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Is there a second? Seeing none, the nomination fails for lack of a second. Is there any other nomination for vacancy on the Planning Commission? I will nominate Guy Triano to the vacancy on the Planning Commission. Mr. Triano is truly an incredible person. He currently works for the American Red Cross. He is a regional chief executive officer where he oversees a large team and a very broad area that's involved in everything from fundraising to disaster relief to communication to volunteer recruitment to real estate acquisition. He's got a lot of experience in that role dealing directly with community leaders. He has a history in that role dealing with financial management and public accountability. He deals with revenue and expenditures and budgets. In addition, he is a truly dedicated community member. Mr. Troiano is currently a member of the Middletown Community Foundation, which, for those that don't know, is just an incredible organization that supports our police department, provides scholarships, college scholarships for Neshaminy High School students. He also is involved in a number of other community organizations. He's on the board of directors of Woods Community at Bryan's House. He's a member of the Philadelphia Emergency Food and Shelter Program, member of the Sunday Breakfast Club, member of the Association of Donor Recruitment Professionals. He's also been on the board of directors of the Neshaminy Kids Club, and he coaches both soccer and baseball in the township. He's got a bachelor's degree in applied science, or rather, business administration and associates in applied science. And he's just a really great individual and somebody who I think would be fantastic in this role. So I would nominate Guy Triano to the vacancy for the Planning Commission. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Ms. Kane, did you vote in favor or against?
In favor.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda, consideration of appointing someone to a vacancy on the Historical Preservation Commission. Is there or are there any nominees for appointment to the Historical Preservation Commission?
I would like to nominate Chris Fullen. He is the owner-operator of Forever Hung Historic Wood Window Restoration. So I think someone who specializes in historic preservation would be a perfect person to put on our Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Thank you, Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Fullen, for your willingness to serve. Next, we have appointments to the Citizens Traffic Commission. I believe there are 2 vacancies on the Citizens Traffic Commission. Are there any nominations for the vacancies on the Citizens Traffic Commission?
I'd like to nominate William Everett. He is a 36-year resident. He also comes to us with 45 years in career in the transportation industry, focused in rail and transit. I think it would be an asset to our commission.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Everett. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Everett, for your willingness to serve. And we've got one more vacancy on the Citizens Traffic Commission. Is there another nomination?
I'll nominate James Flynn. He comes to us as a resident since 2007. He was a bus driver for Neshaminy from 2017 to 2020, and is familiar with all areas of Middletown. I think will be an asset to our commission.
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Payne, I think you got in first. There's been a motion and a second to nominate Mr. Flynn. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Flynn, for your willingness to serve. Congratulations, and thank you again to all 3 of these individuals. All of these boards and commissions rely on community volunteers, so we appreciate all of your willingness to be involved. So I apologize again for going out of order on the agenda. Next on the agenda is the review of the Penndot US 1 project, and I believe Ms. Thioli-Cools is going to take the lead with that.
Good evening. Many of you know that this topic has come up recently in the news because our neighboring municipalities have been discussing this at their meetings. We're in the very, very early stages, the analysis stage for the Penndot section. It's basically the 4th section in this large US 1 project. The purpose is to modernize the roadway. It's to improve safety, efficiency in travel, basically just matching the roadway to current design criteria and basically driver expectations. A lot of this is pulled straight from the website, which I'll give you the address in a little bit. The project limits are here in this slide. It's just north of the US 1 bridge over Business Route 1 to just south of the US 1 Maple Avenue interchange. And as I mentioned, it does impact not just Middletown, but Langhorne Borough and Langhorne Manor Borough. Penndot is encouraging public feedback at this point. That is one of the reasons it's on the agenda, so that the board can consider whether or not they want to officially provide feedback. The website is up there. Again, it's in preliminary design. Penndot shared with us today construction would be no time before 2026, so again, very early on. Back in June of 2020, Penndot did post a video on their website that was, the idea was to seek feedback. Apparently more than 90 people interacted with Penndot. Penndot shared with us that more than 40 of them had direct contact with the design team. So Penndot is very seriously taking into consideration resident feedback and municipal impact. So they are asking for feedback from us. They do anticipate that they will be at the point where they'll have another public plans meeting here. They've had a couple over the years. I think the first time they did a plans display meeting here, it might have gone back 4 or 5 years. So tonight, I am not as a representative of Penndot, but I am going to take you through the plan so that the public can see it. Our traffic engineer, Phil Worsta from TPD, is here, and he will chime in. But briefly, this shows you the limits of the project. So you're starting out here near the high school. That's the high school football field right there. And you're going all the way over here to just south of Maple Avenue. This is a slide that shows you what it looks like right now. I drive this every day, so this is very familiar to me. You've got 2 lanes of traffic. You have a concrete, I guess you would call it an island, a concrete island. There's no shoulder. And the divider in the center is a guide rail, sort of mounted on some concrete. The access roads over here on both sides are owned and maintained by Middletown Township. This next slide is going to show you what they're talking about doing right now. So first and foremost, removal of the concrete islands. Removal of the concrete islands, there now will be 2 travel lanes in each direction. At the center, there will be a 6-foot shoulder on both sides. This center barrier is to be a concrete barrier. On the outer lanes, and this is, I think, most significant from a safety standpoint, there will be 14-foot shoulders on either side. If you travel that roadway now, if we go back, you can see there's no shoulder at all here. And that is something that is of concern from a public safety standpoint. One of the concepts that is being proposed is converting a portion of the access roads to bicycle and pedestrian pathways. Another potential is, and you're seeing it here, these are sound barriers. That is just an idea right now. It is not something that is decided upon. It is just a potential. So that gives you an idea of what it might look like. On the right-hand side, you see, for the proposal as it exists now, there are some areas where the access roads remain open. In those areas, there would be a travel lane, and then there would be a shoulder. They're saying about 8-foot paved shoulder for pedestrians and bicycles. So I'm going to start out by the high school. So just to orient you, you can see this is the high school property. This is the highway right now. Unfortunately, the plan is in a state of flux. And so the 2 red X's show you what Penndot told us today is now no longer even considered as part of their planned design. But if we're looking first at the northbound lane, this would be the 1 interchange northbound at Highland. And there would be a roundabout here, there'd be a roundabout over here. On the southbound side, as I mentioned, they're eliminating what were initially a ramp and a roundabout. They shared with us today that it's primarily because of the traffic conditions and the stacking and the backup from the high school that they've decided to go back to a southbound ramp that we will see in the next iteration of this, which will remain close to the existing ramp. So now as we move on down, it's a little difficult to see, but the frontage roads where you see yellow, that is where the frontage road would remain, and where you see a cross-hatched area, that is where the frontage road would be removed, and that's where there would be the potential for pedestrian and bicycle. You also see it down there. There's a little portion that the access road would be removed, and then there are these sections of crosshatched area where the access roads would be removed. That's the same as we continue on. I don't think there's too much to highlight here. When there is a plans display meeting, residents will be able to come in and take a look at exactly, where their parcels are. But, this shows you that's a section of cross-hatched area that would be removed. There's a section that would stay the same. And then finally, what is probably the most discussed concept is a partial cloverleaf interchange. There would be two signalized intersections. They would have one through lane initially. Eventually, there would be two through lanes. What you're seeing on this section is sort of this light blue turquoise is actually a 12-foot wide path for pedestrians and bicycles. So that's pretty significant pedestrian connection going all the way down here. And there's a train station down here, there's a library up here, the borough is up here. And also as part of this is this roundabout down here. Let's see. I'm going to just go to sort of the last slide that I have, which will just sort of leave you as elected officials with some things to think about. We do need to let Penndot know the township's official position regarding converting the access roads to pedestrian and bicycle paths. They've also asked us if we have any special requests related to mitigation, and I just put down some ideas. The width of the pedestrian bicycle paths so that it would be something that we'd be able to maintain easily with a small truck so that we wouldn't have to purchase any special equipment. The sound barriers are on the table at this point. I don't know if the board has any opinion about that. Some other things that we might advocate for is pedestrian safety, landscape buffering along the trail areas, potentially anything related to signals and property taking. And then finally, Penndot did specifically ask if the board was so inclined and in light of the significant safety improvement in the community that the board consider a letter of support or a resolution of support. In your packets this evening, I included the resolution of support from Langhorne Manor Borough, and I also included the specific letters requesting mitigation efforts from both Langhorne Borough and Langhorne Manor Borough. And so that is all I have. I'm happy to attempt to answer questions. If it's all right with the board, maybe I'll just toss it over to Phil. Do you have anything to add from my presentation?
Thanks, Phil.
I don't have anything to add. In fact,
Come on, you came all the way down
no,
here.
I'm thinking that Ms. Julie-Cools is her second career after she's through with Middletown will be as a traffic engineer. She did a great job talking about the project. I just want to point out that it's really important that this project move forward expeditiously. This is this highway needs to be updated, and it's being updated in the south. We're going to the north. That's the next step. We got to get it done. It's a 1970s design. There's safety issues and so forth. As you know, the township works very, very well with Penndot, especially Ms. Cools. And she's on top of almost all the things that are going on with Penndot with regard to this project. The institution of roundabouts, as you can see, we're leading the way and putting one in at Bridgetown Pike. And now Penndot's doing the same thing along this stretch of roads. They're great for traffic calming and handling vehicles at a slow rate of speed. So it makes quality of life much better. Also, the advocacy associated with walking trails, something that we're espousing everywhere, they're taken care of in this. So I really support a resolution. If you could send one to PennDOT, let them know you're full speed ahead, and certainly if there's anything, I should point out, there's a lot of things that are in flux here. So if we think of something that we might need over the next year or two or whatever, even during up to construction, we have a good enough relationship with PennDOT that we can bring that sort of thing up and perhaps get something else done. So that's all I have.
Can you answer a question for me? On one of the slides, they showed where the walking paths would be, and then it looks like, I think it's a couple back No, it's forward, I'm sorry. You had and then there were still access roads that were in yellow. Is it going to be that the walking path just stops and then there's an access road so people can't get around? Or is there a plan to still make the walking safe there? I'm just curious. Okay, so there would still be that side on the side where they could safely walk.
And that is something that you as a board can advocate,
Okay.
that
I just would hate to
the
see
importance of the
it stop.
safety, the
Right.
importance of the safety
The
as
design
a
of it.
walking and pedestrian path transitions to an on-road shoulder.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. I wasn't sure, I wasn't seeing it correctly. I wanted to just clarify. Thank you.
And I do think that, you're seeing a sound barrier here. If you're looking on the left-hand side, you're seeing a sound barrier. I feel a lot more comfortable about people walking with a sound barrier than a low concrete barrier.
Right.
And I'm not a traffic engineer.
No, that's a good point,
Is
and
there
that's,
I'm sorry, is there going to be a way for somebody who's on the north side to get over to the south side, or no? Like, just the roundabout?
Just
the
those two
the
spots, yeah.
roundabout? Okay.
Are there, I'm sorry, there are bridges. I'm sorry.
yeah,
The two spots are to get onto the highway, but there are 3 bridges
yes,
going
they're
across.
existing bridge, they're extra bridges that'll take you back and forth. So,
Yeah, so they're keeping the access on what is it, the north side, northbound side?
It's back and forth.
yeah, I still,
Back and
Back and forth.
that's still in flux. I
It
mean,
is. And if you look at it, Dana, right here, you can see this is the northbound side, and that's a section that's being removed.
Okay.
That's a section that's staying. That's a section that's being removed, staying, removed.
Yeah, and maybe you can answer this. In I think it's the Pine Avenue interchange that they're putting the clover leaves, it looks like you're only able to access one, either southbound, if you're coming from Bellevue, you can only access southbound, and you're only able to access northbound if you're coming from, Maple Ave. Is that the case? Am I reading that right?
I'm not sure, are you talking about cars?
Yeah, so cars.
You can do.
So if
you
you're
can do
coming from
both.
Bellevue, are you able to get on north?
Yes.
You are, okay.
It's full, it'll be
It's a
full movement.
full interchange, just 2 clover leaves, just 2 corners, so. And to your point regarding the frontage roads, one of the things that we've been talking with Penndot about for years with regard to this project is trying to eliminate the township's ownership of service roads, of these service roads. So we're doing that with the path. Anything that they're keeping, they have to have a good reason for it. So we're still working with them on that.
And by the way, they want us to keep.
Right.
They want us to own and maintain those trails. That's part of, if we advocate for the trails, we will own and maintain them. And Eric's happy to get rid of the access roads, but adding the maintenance, we have a lot of trails that we're going to be dealing with. We might need to have a trail maintenance crew.
Any other board members have questions for Mr. Worcester or Ms. Steely-Cools? Well, I'll say this. My personal experience with Penndot has been extremely positive. They have been good to work with on this project and other projects for that matter, and I know Ms. Steely-Cools and Mr. Worcester have had good interactions with them. I also like that they are offering so much opportunity for public input and comment as this thing evolves. It is, I can't stress this enough, it is still very much early days with this thing. I mean, there's a lot that still needs to happen. There's a lot of things that are still changing, under advisement, in flux. So I think it's a good opportunity for our board to influence the final design. I would encourage the other board members to think about this, and maybe we can think about coming back and putting a resolution on the agenda at our next meeting. And in addition, think about some mitigation efforts that we may want to push for. So I think, and I think Penndot, to the extent we want to, will make themselves available if we want to talk to them directly and ask questions. Anything else anybody have to say about the Penndot Route 1 project? All right. We will move on to other business. Sorry, public comment. Yes, sir.
Couple things. I agree with Mr. Worcester that we really want this to move. I know a guy who was the head of Penndot when this was being talked about, and he now has gray hair and a fake knee. The caution I would have is to be really, really careful about sound barriers. If you want a project to move forward, sound barriers can stop it in its tracks. They're over, when I was there, they were over $1 million a mile, and I suspect they're 2 or 3 times that now. And one, so look at that. 2, if when we're looking for support, and I believe we really do need the support, citizen support, take a look at that 202, section 700, that up above Doylestown, from Doylestown to Norristown. They have a bike path on the other side of a berm, not a sound barrier, which visibility is better, in my opinion. So I would take a look at that. And the other part that you might want to have citizens from around here look at, and I'm asking Mr. Worsta, we're not talking about a roundabout or a circle like that's in front of Lower Makefield Township building, I hope. I mean, that thing is crazy to have that going down a high-speed highway. And the only other question that I would have would be, what's the width in that first slide? You don't have to show it. That first slide you had, what's the width of the project with the sound barrier? I mean, not the sound, yeah, the service road, yes, this one. What's the width of the project from tree line to tree line and with and without that service road? I remember when Joe Bush was here, or at the county living there, and we were talking about that road, and I totally agree. The service road maintenance is crazy, but PennDOT ain't gonna maintain it either. So if we want this to go, but let's really talk collectively. And with that, I'll just sit down.
We certainly appreciate your institutional knowledge, and I mean that sincerely, so thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you can say it when we're done.
Is there any other public comment? Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Bob Feather, 96 Highland Parkway, Levittown. 2 concerns, 2 questions. We're looking at these walls. We're looking at building and doing all of this here. My first question is, how is that going to impact the residents along that corridor? Number 1, we're building these walls. How tall are the walls? I know we're talking about a 6-foot wall between north and southbound. We're talking about barriers on either side. We're talking about a walking path or a bike path. How close, what is the proximity of the homes within that area? And what's the traffic impact going to be for those homes? And I'm talking about the roundabouts, and I'm also talking about the cloverleaf and the entire impact on that entire area. Because it seems like we do things in this township, and we don't actually look at the entire impact, not just traffic, not just noise, and not just pollution, air pollution. We're talking about exhaust fumes, CO2 emissions. We don't get those studies, or we don't look at those studies, or we don't really consider those studies when we do something like this. So what is the impact going to be on all of those homes in that area? Because we're changing the dynamics of what's there now.
I can just try to briefly answer. I mean, number 1, and most importantly, this is not the Board of Supervisors' decision. It's a PennDOT project. The sound barriers are really just on a plan. We have no idea if they are going to be viable or not. In terms of what the board can do, we can certainly, when requesting mitigation efforts, we could ask for PennDOT to look at any number of those things that you just raised in terms of impact on the residents. I do think probably the biggest impact for residents who are on either side is going to be their access and how they get to and from. And then, of course, there are people who are in that cloverleaf, right? There is going to be a whole right-of-way stage that PennDOT goes through. We know they've already had lots of conversations with people whose properties are directly in line with where that cloverleaf and some of the roundabouts are going to go.
With all due respect, I don't believe the access is an issue. I'm talking about the impacts it's going to have on people and residents that live there long-term. Not just access, but the long-term ramifications with regard to noise, traffic, and CO2 emissions when it comes to pollution. That's what I'm talking about.
And again, we can ask PennDOT. I mean, my gut level response from the emission standpoint is you're going to have less people coming on and off near people's homes, so I would suspect that the impact might be lesser to them. But again, I'm not an expert in that.
Just laying it out there for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Orso, do we receive their studies that they've done, that they've worked through to get to this point, and all of the various, like, thinking about the Maple Ave intersection and the intersections that are going to be impacted by this, but not necessarily part of this discussion? Do we get any of that from Penndot, or, again, I know we're in the preliminary, so we may not be there yet.
Well, one of the things that happens when a project like this is undertaken is they do a comprehensive environmental impact statement. So that's for the length of the project. This length happens to be sections from pretty much Old Lincoln Highway in Bensalem all the way up to almost to 213. And in that area, they do things like the sound sensitivity. When they show sound walls, that's generally to protect homes and try to make the noise from traffic better for the homes that are behind there. So that's why those are done. Certainly, it's an option if people didn't want them, that Penndot would probably be thrilled with that. So those types of studies were done years ago, honestly. And I don't recall, I can't recall it right now, but those studies are done. Another thing that's done as part of this is the redistribution of traffic. 413 is now going to be an interchange, and before it was it wasn't. So you had to come over, you had to get off at 213 and find your way around to be able to get back to 413. And now you don't have to do that. So traffic's going to redistribute itself in both directions. So that's all been done by Penndot and their traffic engineers and their planners and modelers to see how this is all going to work. No one's trying to make more traffic on one place or another. The mitigation of traffic by the roundabouts, that was a big issue for Langhorne with regard to Bellevue and that flasher that you have there now. Now people are going to have to stop, pretty much go around the roundabout slowly to go on their way, which is really a nice feature for the neighborhood that's across the street. So these types of things are looked at by Penndot. I can't speak to if we've ever seen those or how long ago. When depending on the size of the project, those things can be like 12 inches thick with regard to everything. But it's truly vetted by everybody, and we have that opportunity right now to answer all the questions that we have.
And I would just add real quickly, I mean, we've seen the plan change, right? We've seen them go to multiple clover leaves, diverging diamond. I mean, we've seen the gradual change over time. And a lot of times that's taking into consideration the public feedback. A lot of the tweaks that have been made are to minimize the takings, to minimize the impact. And I think we'll continue to see that. I mean, today, Mike and I were on a call and we're told, oh, put an X on those two things, right? The design is still in flux.
So they did another traffic impact study after those were X'd out?
We were just told today that a design that had been considered, they were abandoning that because of the traffic backup.
Understood. So they did another traffic impact study, and now that's...
They set up a model at the beginning of the process with different scenarios associated with traffic. Adding a lane, getting rid of the frontage roads, a new interchange in the way, what's happening down at 213, what's happening down in Bensalem, all that kind of stuff changes. So when they do their reports and do their studies and get into their designs, they look at things and figure out how is this going to work. And they run traffic modeling to see if it's going to work, and then they tweak it, and then sometimes they come back and say, this might not be the best thing to do. So I'll point out that when we go through these processes, we go through 12 to 15 iterations of projects or steps. One is like a no-build situation, and one of is a full build situation with like an expressway type of environment. So it's really done ad nauseum. And I know I'm just saying that, but I'm telling you from my experience and seeing all these environmental impact statements and the amount of work that goes through it to get a project done is incredible. And in fact, it's almost nauseating because it takes some people a lifetime to get something like this done in this day and age with the environmental concerns. That's traffic, that's noise, that's air pollution, that's everything. It's taken into account. So it's just me saying it. I don't have the stuff to prove it right now, but it's clearly done. It's clearly done.
We haven't received any public comment on this at the township level, have we?
Not lately. We had a lot of feedback years ago when the project first was sort of publicized. I haven't gotten any feedback whatsoever from any residents recently.
And just, I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if everything goes as smoothly as possible, we're still not talking like 2026 for this thing to actually start. So we're still essentially, 3 years away. And Penndot, again, has made clear that they are giving lots of opportunity for public comment. We offered our facilities as a location if they want to do it here, so residents can come here and view plans and ask questions and make comments. So now's the time. I mean, that's sort of the purpose of this, is to sort of let people know now is the time to get engaged, ask your questions, give your feedback, and it's our opportunity too to influence this. So that's where we are. That's the stage of this thing that we're at.
Stephanie, can I ask you, how are we communicating that with the community, that this is in this stage of development?
Well, it probably makes sense for us to push the website again. We have had a link on our website for more than a year to the Penndot project website, but it makes sense for us probably now to encourage folks to do that.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on the Penndot Route 1 project? All right, seeing none, then we will now move on to other business. Mr. Kessler.
I do have a plan set that requires signatures, if three of you wouldn't mind staying after to complete that. That's all. Thank you.
Will do, thank you. Mr. Esposito.
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Tealy-Cools.
I would like to announce that March is National Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and our favorite supervisor on Zoom, Anna Payne, is wearing blue in recognition of colon cancer awareness, and so we'd like to recognize her and do what we can to raise awareness for the fourth worst cancer out there. They're all pretty crummy, but if we could just encourage those people that are watching to get regular screenings and to look out for the signs, and most importantly, always trust your instincts if something isn't right, in recognition of Anna just killing it, fighting colon cancer out there in Zoom world.
Thank you, Ms. Tealy-Cools. Ms. Kane.
I'd like to reiterate, welcome Jess to the department, and nothing further.
Thank you. Ms. Corporal.
Nothing else, thank you.
Ms. Hannah.
I just wanted to say thank you to the chief and Middletown Township Police Department and their comprehensive approach to supporting the community and the citizens. I think we're really lucky and fortunate to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Payne.
So a couple things. I just want to congratulate Parkland on their 100th anniversary. They're literally the fire department around the corner, and I hope next year I'll be able to attend their event and I'll be in tad healthier. Fingers crossed. I want to thank Ms. Tealy-Cools for mentioning Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Two quick facts that they did lower the age from 50 to 45, and that is because they are finding colon cancer in younger and younger individuals, unfortunately. If you were born in 1990, you are 2 times more likely to develop colon cancer. So my millennial friends out there, listen to your bodies, and it's never too early to start the conversation with the doctor. I also want to acknowledge James Henderson on the HRC. I remember knocking doors in 2019 when I was just running to be supervisor and having a conversation with James at his door about how he can get involved in the township. So I'm super excited to see that he is now part of our HRC and spearheaded the disabilities resolution that Mr. Kizak read to us tonight. And I want to thank Mr. Warren for the birthday wishes. It's very kind. And I know I can't see the audience all the time, but I always am excited to see that you are here and you are participating in the commissioners' meetings as well. So it's always good to see a friendly face in the audience. So thank you for that. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. I just have a couple things. One, obviously, I think at this time, a lot of us are thinking about what's happening in Ukraine, and I just wanted to mention, I thought it was important to note that we have a resident in our community named Andriy Penchak, who is actually voluntarily going back to Ukraine to fight in that war. Mr. Penchak lives in Middletown with his family, and he's leaving his family behind, and so we just wanted to recognize him for his courage and his bravery. In addition, there's a township resident who is involved in helping to gather items that are needed. There is a local Ukrainian dance school I believe it's in Lower Southampton, that's acting as sort of they're a collection space, and then they're transporting things over to Ukraine. And we have a resident in our township who's spearheading a collection, and I know a lot of people are looking for ways to help. So if you can, if I can real quickly, I'll just read the list of items that they're looking for. Clean, new adult and children clothing, adult diapers, sleeping bags, coats and jackets, underwear for all ages, baby feeding bottles, protein bars, granola bars, non-perishable food, towels, bed sheets, first aid kits, knee pads, bandages, flashlights, thermals, power banks, hygiene products, and feminine hygiene products. And anybody who wants to donate any items like this, you can drop them off at 528 Fairman Lane in Langhorne, 528 Fairman Lane in Langhorne. They are accepting donations from 12 noon till 4 p.m. And so if anybody is interested in helping, that's an opportunity. It's great that our township is involved. So I just wanted to mention that. The other thing I thought needed to be pointed out, a couple of special happy announcements. The first is that our own Ashley Casey, Ashley is executive assistant to Ms. Tioli Cools. Ashley just had a baby, and so we want to say congratulations to Ashley and welcome her back. And the other big news that I just learned about that nobody told me about is our assistant township manager, Nick Valla, just got engaged over the weekend. So congratulations, Nick. And that is all I have. So I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.